Imagine you're an archaeologist. You're brushing dust off a stone somewhere in the jungle, and underneath, you find a machine. Gears, dozens of them, interlocking perfectly. It calculates the position of planets. It predicts eclipses to the day. It was built in 87 BC. And then you ask the question nobody has a good answer to. Where did the people who made this go? That machine is real. It's called the Antikythera mechanism. We found it at the bottom of the sea in 1901, corroded, crumbling, but still, unmistakably, a computer, built 2,000 years before we thought humans were capable of building one. And it's not an anomaly. It's a pattern. The Romans had indoor plumbing before London did. The Maya calculated Venus with 0.02% accuracy without telescopes. The Inca moved million-pound stones up mountains without wheels. They weren't primitive. They were us. Maybe sharper. So what happened to them? Here's what most history books skip. They didn't all fall to invaders. They didn't all run out of food or water. Many of them knew, not that they were going to be conquered, but that something was wrong, that the thing they'd built was starting to hollow out from the inside. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man alive in 170 AD. He commanded the largest army in the world. He sat at the edge of the Roman Empire, watching the barbarians on the other side of the Danube, and wrote in his private journal, "It is not death that a man should fear. He should fear never having lived at all." He wasn't afraid of the barbarians. He was afraid that Rome had already stopped living, that it was running on momentum, on memory, on the inertia of what it used to be. 40 years after he died, the empire started fracturing. 100 years after that, the city of Rome was sacked for the first time in 800 years. There's a name for what Marcus Aurelius was feeling. Philosophers call it cosmic dread, not fear of death, not fear of war. The specific, quiet terror of realizing the universe doesn't care whether you or your civilization exists. You look up at the stars and the stars don't look back. Every great civilization hit this moment, and they all had to answer the same question. If none of this means anything, why keep building? Most of them answered by doubling down. More temples, more laws, more ceremony, more spectacle. Rome in its final century was obsessed with entertainment. The Colosseum was packed. The parties were legendary. Bread and circuses, they called it. Not because people were happy, because they were afraid to be quiet. Nietzsche had a phrase for what comes next. Passive nihilism. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's just a society that no longer believes the story it's been telling itself, but doesn't know what to replace it with. So it keeps performing the story, louder and louder, until one day it doesn't. The Maya are harder to explain, and historians will tell you that themselves. We know there was drought. We know there were wars. We know the population had pushed far past what the land could support. But here's what's strange. In some cities, there's no sign of a final battle. No mass graves. No burned gates. The people just left. Walked away from cities they'd spent generations building. Maybe they had no choice. Maybe the land gave out and they had to move. Or maybe, and this is the part that's harder to shake, They looked at what they'd built and what it had cost them, and they made a decision. We don't know. The jungle grew back over the answer, but the question stays with you. So here's the question I can't stop thinking about. Every civilization that's ever existed has eventually reached this point. Not necessarily invasion, not necessarily famine, just a moment where the meaning runs out, where the story stops making sense, where people keep performing the rituals but stopped believing in them a long time ago. And I look around at 2025 and I think, what story are we telling ourselves right now? Are we building something? Or are we just very, very busy? Camus thought about this his whole life, and he came to something that sounds simple but took him years to write. You keep going. Not because the universe gives you a reason, not because history promises you'll be remembered, but because the act of choosing to continue, in full awareness that it might not matter, is itself the most human thing there is. The civilizations that lasted longest weren't the ones with the most resources or the most military power. They were the ones that kept asking the question and didn't flinch from the answer. Civilizations don't die because they run out of smart people. They die because they run out of reasons to keep going. And that reason, no empire, no government, no algorithm can manufacture it for you. You have to find it. So I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to know what you think. Where do you think we are in this cycle? Drop it in the comments. I'll read every one. Beat. And if you want to keep pulling on this thread, I'll be here.